Let's get a national perspective of this. We've talked with a lot of former Alabama players over the last couple of hours. We've been live going on 3 hours now. Our buddy Brandon Marcello joins us, 24/7 Sports, who covers college football on a national level. And I think Brandon, there he is. Hey, Brandon, welcome in. How are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. I'm in Nashville, was at the coaches convention, and Nick Saban calls me to miss my flight tonight. Huge news, and been on the phone ever since.
Well, was there so you're at the coaches convention. For those that don't know, pretty much every coach in America that is not playing for the national championship, if it's not Jim Harbaugh and Kalen DeBoer, they're at this convention. Was there any scuttlebutt of this going on among the coaches?
I mean, listen, there were rumors, listen, for the last few weeks, but also here at the convention, everybody, it came up. Is Nick Saban going to retire? When's he going to retire? Is it going to happen? And but no one knew for sure. But it just this year felt different, didn't it, guys? And it felt different to the coaches of the industry. It's so interesting, not interesting, but the timing of all this. If this happened in the morning, it'd been interesting because I was talking to Dabo Sweeney for a while this morning, and no one had any idea this was coming. And of course, the tenor of my conversations with these guys would have been much different had this news broken, and because we're talking about potential candidates here. But I think everybody was wondering when the GOAT was going to hang it up, because it certainly seemed like things have been changing and changing. It seemed like the writing had been on the wall for the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, Brandon, I think we could talk accomplishments, for hours and hours with Nick Saban. But I think the fascinating thing is the potential candidates, because obviously it is one of the top jobs in all of college football. They've got the resources, they've got the money, they've got the history, the fan base is incredible. But you are following the greatest of all time. So I do think it takes a special person to take that job.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Sorry, I was looking at my phone. Listen, the top two names that I've been hearing just talking to people, industry sources, of course, is Dan Lanning and Mike Norvell. Dan Lanning, of course, at Oregon, Mike Norvell at Florida State. It'd be interesting to see if Alabama really is interested in paying a big buyout. Dan Lanning has one right now. But talking to people close to both of these guys, the thing with Dan Lanning is of course, the last 2 years he's voiced, "Hey, I don't want to leave Oregon. I'm not looking to leave Oregon." I still believe that's the case. But if Alabama comes to him and goes, "We're going to settle the money. You don't have to worry about any of that. You don't have to worry about paying taxes on your buyout and all this stuff. His buyout's $20 million." I don't see how he would say no to that, and I think he would take it. Mike Norvell at Florida State, I think there are plenty of reasons why he would take that. And unlike the situation back in 1990 with Bobby Bowden, the former Florida State coach in Alabama, I think Mike Norvell would take it, and it would be done deal overnight if they were to go after him. His buyout's only $4 million. And as much as Florida State is a player nationally, and it's going to be a playoff contender next year in a 12-team playoff, there's only one Alabama. And yeah, you're following the greatest of all time, but you're also inheriting the top roster in college football as it stands right now in the 24/7 Sports team composite. You are built to win a national championship this year and the year after. Florida State, as well as Mike Norvell, has built that thing, complementing high school recruiting and his own development with the coaches with the transfer portal. This coming year, there's going to be a down year for them. And he's got to rebuild that thing back up. It's going to be easier than it has been the last 2-3 years. He's got to build that thing up. And the other thing is he could take the great players he's got at Florida State with him to Alabama if he needs them. To me, this is not me saying this is what I'm being told. To me, Mike Norvell makes the most damn sense to me, guys. Right at this moment, I would, if I was Alabama, I'd kick the tires a little bit on him because the guy recruits his ass off. He develops. He has figured out the transfer portal. He can coach. He can recruit the South, and he's built tremendous coaching staffs. I think he would be a home run.
Two things, and if you don't know the answer, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but this is breaking news, developing story now. One, does Mike Norvell, does he call his plays? Does he call his own plays? See, tell us a little bit about
for the
Mike.
most part.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Mike Norvell is a guy that comes from a tree that, I mean, you're looking at a guy that, number one, his offense is multiple. He can move guys around. He's not stuck in one system. I think the thing that gets underrated about Mike Norvell is that he is a great developer of coaches and a great identifier of coaches who will help his program.
Sounds familiar.
You look at the tree, exactly. You look at his tree, the guys that he's put around himself and what they have gone on and done themselves. Kenny Dillingham, for example, now at Arizona State and was killer at Oregon. I think Norvell is a guy that just kind of fits that situation. To me, the hot name, of course, in coaching circles is Kalen DeBoer. What he was able to do at Washington. He's a hell of a coach. He's won 90% of his games. And philosophically, I think he's a very similar guy to Nick Saban. The issue there is that he never coached the South. He's never recruited the South. And that would be a big issue. But if you're looking for a DeBoer type, to me, with Southern ties, Mike Norvell's that type of guy. And I know some Alabama fans go, well, he had a slow start there, but he inherited a dumpster fire there. Jimbo Fisher had gutted that offensive line, had not done a great job recruiting. The staff was in turmoil. And he came in there in an inflection point for that program, but also in college football history where the transfer portal was opening up. NIL, no one knew how to figure it out, and he put his finger on the pulse and figured it out, and won there and turned that thing around. And I think he's a calming force that could really help Alabama right now.
I'm going to ask a question only because I don't know the answer, and you usually provide me with the answer. Everyone is concerned about the roster. How fluid can that roster be? And let me first ask you about the kids who signed in the early signing period, and then the kids who are on the roster, from Jalen Milroe to Caleb Downs and everyone in between. How fluid can that roster be? How much freedom do they have?
They're free. You got 30 days into the transfer portal now when your coach leaves, including that 24 class. They're going to be sharks in the water. Programs like Miami that have been throwing money around like crazy, as you guys know, and have been jumping in the 11th hour with players that they didn't really have a chance at, but they're trying their best to get, including number one receiver Jeremiah Smith who went to Ohio State, and he didn't turn in his NIL paperwork or whatever, his NLI, I should say, and they had about a 6-hour window where they're trying to convince him money-wise to come to Miami. There are going to be people trying to go after these players to get them into the transfer portal. But the thing is, you got to be a calming force here in the next day or two if this coaching search goes long for a week. When I say long, a week would be long to me. I think this is something that could be settled here the next 3 to 4 days because of just how crucial the calendar is. I don't see why, if you're a kid in the 2 deep at Alabama, you should leave. Why would you leave? There are going to be probably some guys who leave. There's already guys decommitting or whatever. That's the natural stage of progress of this. But once they get a new coach in there, they're going to stabilize things. They are not going to have a mass exodus, guys. It's just not going to happen. And I've seen the rumors already about NIL situation in Alabama. Maybe it's not as great as it should be or whatever. Still damn Alabama, guys. They're going to contend for championships. So you want to go take a payday and go somewhere else and be on the depth chart and not win games for just a few extra dollars? It's not going to be that wide of a gap money-wise. Again, simply put, just don't see that there being a mass exodus.
You have to look, and you mentioned, Lanning. I don't know how Oregon fits in the Big Ten yet. But if I'm any, Go ahead.
Sorry.
No. Because I was going to say, Brandon, if I'm any coach of any worth, I want to be in the Big Ten or the SEC. Those are the two conferences in college football now. And I know what I was about to say is Oregon is in the Big Ten. Norvell is not, obviously. I just don't know where they fit in the Big Ten. And that is a huge question if I'm Dan Lanning.
I also think this is also doesn't get talked about enough. We're about to find this out. Maybe I'm wrong. But again, OU and Texas had more time to prepare coming into the SEC. They changed their recruiting to fit the style in the SEC in the trenches. This isn't the big freaking 12. Oregon and Washington have not been able to have the time to change and recruit to prepare for the Big Ten, playing in the cold weather, dealing with injuries, playing games that it ends up actually being a time of possession game. As much as it isn't anymore, it does become that in the Big Ten and November games. All that travel, that is something to consider. And as good as Oregon is and what they've built there in Dan Lanning and the recruiting, I still hear stories from people that recruiting to Eugene is an issue. And that's always going to be something that's always in the back of people's minds.
He is Brandon Marcello, 24/7 Sports, and he gives us some great insight from the side of the coaches' convention. I can only imagine what the coaches' convention might have been like had this broken 2 days ago.
That's the thing. I mean, again, all I can think of as a reporter here is that I was standing in front of Dabo Sweeney having a casual conversation like the world wasn't ending, and the world's ending in a lot of ways. Instead, listen, this has all been rumored for a while, and you prepare yourself for this day, but it's still mind-boggling that it just happened.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, who's watching our show right now, makes a great point. I don't know if this has ever happened in the history of NIL, but by rule now, officially at 4 o'clock today, Nick Saban is able to donate to Yay Alabama the NIL
Good point.
in Tuscaloosa. Yeah. So
I'd hit him up.
If you want to give a little back, Hey, can I go ahead and do Brown's job? When a new coach is announced in Tuscaloosa, will you make plans to join us?
I would love to, guys. Yeah. As long as there's bourbon.
There'll be
We'll
bourbon.
always have bourbon.
Yeah.
Enjoy another night on Broadway. I'm sure that's exactly what you wanted.
I did. Listen, I have not gone out all. It's been all work, and I hate saying that, but man, I missed my flight by like 5 minutes, and so I'll fly out about 4.
Go pour one out for the GOAT, man. Everybody else is.
Yeah, I will tell you, if we were drinking bourbon tonight in the situation we were in that night when we went to look for my first tattoo, Alabama has tweeted out the picture I would get put on my body part tonight. Nick Saban holding 6 different championship trophies.
I'll pay for it.
If I had enough bourbon in me tonight, that maybe I'm glad I'm not in Nashville. That may be what I come home with on my thigh or something. Outer thigh.
What do you guys? I know you guys probably have talked about this because you've been on the air for a while, but like, what's Saban's next move?
I think, I saw somebody in our chat room, Brandon. They were talking about, does Corso retire? He had this relationship with McAfee all throughout the year, and Dunaway heard, how important that interview was for him, and you wonder if he was building rapport to end up being on College Game Day.
Yeah, I'll say this. Earlier in the year, in September, I was talking to some people close to Lee, and they were saying that they thought this was his last season on the show, and of course, that ended up not being the case, at least announced publicly. So, maybe this is, maybe Lee goes, hey, I will gladly step aside and hand the baton to Nick Saban, but I'm with you. I think he's definitely on TV next fall.
He's really good at it. He's really good at it, and
fantastic.
And I think you've seen, Brandon, some of these guys that are so competitively driven find a little bit of that in their TV work because they get to still break down film and they still get to talk to coaches and be around players, and it doesn't replace coaching, but it allows them to just get a little bit of a taste of that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, you talk to all these TV commentators when they go in on those Thursdays or Fridays before games, they get to sit down and talk about the roster and everything. They love that stuff. They eat that stuff up. I could see Nick doing that as well. It's kept Urban Meyer going, and he's always part of the conversation on the Fox broadcast. And Nick was I mean, Nick, anything he does, he's probably going to be successful at. I mean, the guy has never tweeted in his life, but I'm sure he could become an influencer if he put his mind to it too. The guy's just, he's got that brain.
Loves cars, 6 Mercedes dealerships, 1 Ferrari dealership. And the Ferrari dealership was blessed by the Ferrari family when he was over there this year. So it's going to be hopefully a sweet retirement in whatever he and Terry decide to do. And Terry Saban, this is an unbelievable quote from Terrion Arnold on the show, just to tell you how the Sabans were feeling after this Pasadena Rose Bowl. When Terrion was leaving the Sabans' home after the conversation about going to the NFL, Terry told him, quote, "You've done more than enough, Terrion. You've done more than enough." And what a great sentiment to send a kid off to his next chapter than just say, "Thank you. You've done more than enough for us." And that's what Alabama fans should be feeling and saying to Nick Saban tonight. You've done more than enough, Nick. You've done more than enough. I don't know why I'm ending the show with you on here, Brandon.
Yeah, wow.
But that felt like the ending of the show, yes.
Brandon has seen it. Brandon, you've seen that side of Dunaway about 6 bourbons deep. But
that's the thing. It usually takes some shots to get to, man. What's going on?
He's almost cried a couple of times, man.
It's emotional, man.
Well, listen, guys, in this new era of college football and whatever it's going to become even 10, 15 years from now, no one's going to match Nick Saban's output. No one ever. Never.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening.
Yeah, as close to perfection as you can get as a coach.
Absolutely. No one will ever come close to it.
Yep. Brandon, thank you for jumping on. Sorry you missed your flight. Enjoy another night in Nashville and safe travels home tomorrow.
Love chatting with you guys. See you.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. That is Brandon Marcello. You can follow Brandon on Twitter at @bmarcello and read him at 247 Sports.